going to host the meeting today, and then we are going to be recording, just letting you guys know so we can post it on our YouTube channel. So Sammy, thank you so much for joining us. And Savannah, do you kind of want to kick it off?
Yeah, so kind of like I said earlier, I did write some questions down, but anybody who wants to ask a question, please interrupt me or raise your hand or write one in the chat and I'll read it for you. The first thing I kind of wanted to do was have you kind of talk about your background and how you've gotten to where you're at right now.
Yeah, so I was a COC person. You guys have probably heard a lot about COC because it was awesome. And that's kind of where I got my start with things. I did, if you guys are familiar with Santa Clarita and you grew up there, I went to Golden Valley High School. And we had GVTV, and I produced the morning show every day. And I thought I was going to be a film kid. But I actually ended up being a journalism kid. And what's cool about all of these little communities that, CSUN and COC are surrounded with is there's awesome internship opportunities. And the reason why they're so awesome is because a lot of these places are small and will actually let you do things, which is really cool. So I interned at the Signal, and I eventually got a job there. And so there's a lot of breaking news around us, as you guys probably know. And so I kind of fell in love with journalism that way. And I also totally fangirled over a couple storytellers. I fell in love with really good feature stories. And when I say features, they're just kind of, a lot of them are feel good, a lot of them are human interest, but you really get to know someone and know about their story. And some people do it really well. And a lot of the times these stories are visually beautiful. They're just gorgeous. And I just started watching all of these stories and really getting into it. And I wasn't really into photography or videography that much. I totally thought that one day I was going to be a reporter and I was going to have a photographer and I wouldn't have to lug any of those Pelican cases around. But eventually I started realizing that no one else was going to do this really good photography for me, and I had to learn how to do it. And so I kind of fell in love with that side of things, which I think I could probably show you a story or something like that. I think that's kind of what set me apart when I graduated, because there's a lot of kids that have strong presence on camera when they're graduating, but the reason why a lot of news directors said that they liked me was because I could shoot really well, and I could write really well, and my stories just looked different because I cared about that aspect of things. And so I kind of fell in love with MMJing early on. I eventually went to Arizona State University, and I really tried to put myself out there with internships. I tried to go above and beyond with all the opportunities that I had. I remember one example, I was interning in Phoenix at a television station, and for some reason a photographer got scheduled the wrong way or something like that. And so they were short on photographers. And then, of course, when that happens, there's shootings across the valley. And I mean, these crime scenes they're just like, tape up and there's a bunch of cops there. And I was like, I can just go to those shootings. Like, I know how to shoot. I've used your cameras before. Do you want me to just go? And they're like, are you sure? We've never sent an intern to these kinds of things before. And I was like, yeah, I could go. And it's because, any of you guys could do it. Anyone probably in, a broadcast major could do it, but it's just kind of putting yourself out there and offering to do things. So I tried to do that with every internship that I got. And then I also fell in love with the National Press Photographers Association, which is basically a group that really cares about their photography. I put myself through a couple different seminars, which is a week where you go to a place and you learn from the professionals, and they actually are having online workshops as well. And that really taught me the format of a story. And I could go on about storytelling and shooting. Like, I'm such a nerd about that sort of thing. And I just really loved it. And, one thing that I struggled with in in college that I definitely want to bring up that I know that other folks are probably struggling with too, was I just compared myself to everybody. And that's just something that you do because you're just like, whoa, Jessica is so good on air and she's such a good anchor. And I'm not like that. And I think that's such a wrong way to approach things. I think it's so important to watch other people's work and learn from it. But the best person that you can compare yourself to is the person that you were yesterday, and figuring out what you need to do to improve, and watching your work, as painful as it is, because I watch my work still. I'm just like, ooh, I shouldn't be doing this. But it's important to figure out what you need to do to grow, and don't worry about everyone else. And when you guys are applying to jobs and talking to people, you're also, going to hear about your colleagues and that sort of thing, talking to jobs and stations. And I think the most important piece of advice I could give someone is just don't care where other people are going, or whether your DMA rating is right next to theirs, because that is what you want to do is you want to choose a station that you think you'll be happy at, management that you think will accept your style, what you like. And that's how I ended up in Anchorage, Alaska. So that was my first job. I was deciding between actually a station in Santa Barbara where it was beautiful and the beaches and surfing. And then there was Anchorage, Alaska, where there's lots of bears and negative temperatures. And I totally thought I was going to end up close to home, but I decided to push myself a little bit, partly, and this was a big reason why, is because they liked storytelling. When I told them I really liked features, they didn't run away like other news directors I talked to. You could just kind of tell that when you say, I like human interest stories, and I don't really like, a lot doing crime stories, some of them will shy away from that, and that's okay. But that just kind of helps you figure out what station will be right for you. And I was really fortunate where I had a few options, which was really awesome. And so I ended up going to Anchorage, and I had an awesome time. And they really helped me grow as journalists. I think you need to watch the newscasts of these places that you're applying to, watch a couple and see, is there journalism that you like there? Do you think that there's folks that you can learn from there? And that's an important question to ask. Obviously, there's going to be days where people just have to slam it in, and that's what they got to do. But, it's important to talk to people from that station, not just the news director. And you get a lot of insight into that. And so I was in Anchorage. It was awesome. It was so much fun. I got to do things that I never thought I would do, and report on things I never thought I would report on. And then, the pandemic hits, and most stations, that I've talked to have hired, a number of people during the pandemic. And there's already been a wave of students too before you guys that have gone through that process. And so I think management is pretty comfortable, hiring people they haven't, necessarily met before, and talking to folks. And so after Anchorage, I did intern at Hawaii News Now in Honolulu, 2018. And then I was really fortunate. It was both, it was gray to gray. And so I transferred over to Honolulu, and that's where I am right now. And it's been really awesome to come back to, a place I'm kind of familiar with. And I get the best of both worlds. I'm a morning reporter for 2 days of the week, and I'm an MMJ dayside 3 days of the week, which makes for an interesting sleep schedule, which is why I have coffee. And it's just been a really good experience. And yeah, it can be hard to get creative during the pandemic, but that's also part of the fun, is figuring out how to make a Zoom interview creative, because you can do it. You can put, I have a, oh gosh, you're going to say my laundry, whatever. I have, a computer screen right here. You can set up your phone in front of the computer screen on a tripod, shoot your phone if you can, if you have, borrow a friend's phone, and then, get the background of the mountains and something like this. So it's a challenge, but that's part of the fun. do I answer these questions, or are you gonna?
I can read them to you.
Okay.
So Jesse asked, did you land every internship and opportunity that you applied for? And if not, what would you say kept you from getting internships that you applied for?
There was a couple national internships that I didn't ever respond to me. I don't know why they didn't respond to me. And I don't think you could take it personally, you know. That's just something that you can't. And you know, I had stations when I was out of college that I like was really hoping would take me, and they just didn't. And maybe it was timing. That's what they said it was. It could have been something else. But I think you just got to not take it. Don't take it personally. You know, you never know what they're looking for. You know, you just need to recognize, you know, what your assets are and what your skill sets are, and feel comfortable with those, and just be confident with yourself. And that is something I've always struggled with. If you know, if an opportunity doesn't present itself, or you know, I feel like, oh, maybe if I was this way, then that would have happened, but you just can't let that stop you. Definitely follow up though. I've had a good shot when I like followed up with individuals or thanked them for an interview or something like that. I left a good impression. But you know, I think if you're, you know, a genuine person who likes this industry, it'll come through. And just having a good positive attitude and saying, especially the internships, you know, just say yes. Just do what they tell you to do. And then you know, unless you're uncomfortable with it, of course, then that's definitely voice that. And most management, they'll appreciate that. But you know, just work hard and go above and beyond when you can. And when things like that happen, just don't take it personally, and just move on and apply to the next one, and show that competition station or newspaper that they should have picked you.
So Bea asked a question. Since you mentioned that you really prefer doing feature stories, she asked, is it easy to find a job for someone who is interested in feature stories? Because usually she feels that employers prefer hard news professionals.
I totally was so scared of that when I was applying for jobs. It's difficult because for the most part, I only pursued stations that I knew would be cool with that. And I was honest with stations that I just kind of interviewed at or talked to with that weren't into it. And you could sometimes tell when the news director wasn't super excited about the fact that that's what you like to do. I was really passionate and honest with most of my interviews with that stuff. And I think it also helped that I proved myself in that background. I had really good feature stories to show for the fact that, you know, I'm good at this. You should let me do this. And most of the time, you know, if it's the right fit, then they'll be cool about it. You know, if it's your first time, if it's your first job, a lot of these places, you're going to have to do hard news as well. And there are really creative ways that I try to do to fit in the feature stuff to the hard news. You know, you find that really good story, and then it connects on a hard news level, and you just have a great story. And so, you know, I mean, I think you should be honest with them and, you know, say, you know, how I like to do my hard news is I like to be able to tell a story with it. I think that's the best way to come across with viewers. And so I would just do your research. And if you need help kind of figuring out what places, what companies like that sort of thing, I could totally help you out with that too. But yeah, I think being honest is important if especially if you're talking to a couple stations or newspapers or whatever it is.
So Bea actually asked if you could give examples of places that you applied for, and I think it would be a really good idea for her to talk to you about that because she is an international student. She's in Brazil, so she doesn't know a lot about some of the US stations.
Yeah, so I mean, it really differs from station to station. And there's some famous stations that are really, well known for that sort of thing. Anchorage, what I actually do is I go to the NPPA Station of the Year. So that's the National Press Photographers Association that I was talking about. And you'll see a small market, a medium market, and a large market station of the year. And there's also runner-ups for that station of the year. So these are stations that compete in those competitions, and those competitions are very much like visual storytelling based. So the people that are runner-ups in those categories are stations that have really good writing and have really good photography. So if you like feature storytelling, that is a great place to go. That's actually how I found out that Anchorage was a good market for all that stuff, is because I looked at that list and I saw them there and I was like, that would be a cool place to start my career off. And it turned out to live up to the name. So I would definitely suggest looking at that. I mean, and there's stations, like you don't have to go to Anchorage, Alaska if you don't want to do storytelling, I promise. There's awesome opportunities, across the nation. There's in Texas and Washington, in Minnesota, and I mean, it just goes on and on. Every part of the country, there's really strong storytelling stations. So I would definitely look at that list, because I could name a bunch of call letters for you, and you wouldn't remember them. So look at that. Look at the National Press Photographers Association Station of the Year, and check out those small markets to medium markets and see where it would be a good fit for sure.
I would say Jonathan Gonzalez and also Boyd Hooper, who Dave Brill used to talk about all the time.
Yeah, Boyd Hooper. Freaking love Boyd Hooper. I'm his biggest fan. I gotta meet him. You guys should look up Boyd Hooper, and watch his stories, because he's Jesse. Look at Jesse. Send the link in to the National Press Photographer Station of the Year. So definitely check that out. Yeah, I mean, Boyd Hooper and Steve Hartman and Jonathan Gonzalez is a great storyteller too. And I could go on and on about all these wonderful storytellers. And if you want to give me a ring and want to entertain me, I can talk your ear off about it, but I'm not going to right now.
So Sophia asked a really good question, which was actually on the list of questions that I was going to ask. Was it hard for you to leave home at first? Where did you get your motivation to push yourself to move so far away?
Oh, it was really hard. And then I haven't seen my family in a year, since the pandemic, because everyone's old. So I haven't seen them. And it is really, really hard. One thing that is awesome about these starter market stations, is that everyone is in the same boat. And I had like such a great friend group in Anchorage. And, if you go into a more medium market where folks have families and that sort of thing, it is more difficult to break into friend groups or that sort of thing, or have an immediate friend group as soon as you get there. So that's one thing you guys have to look forward to, is that a lot of these starter markets, you're going to have like lifelong friends there. And that's true across the board. And so they become your family. 100% they do. And they know, when new folks come in, like how difficult it is to be away from family. And it is difficult. You don't get a lot of PTO usually in your first job and that sort of thing. And it can be difficult to fly back from wherever you are, wherever you choose. And I just kind of Zoom. Everyone in my family knows how to Zoom now, which is nice. Even my dad, who like doesn't know his email address, he figured out Zoom. And so I do a lot of that. It is hard. But if you really love your job, and I mean, it's just such a fulfilling experience to be a journalist. And I know like people make a bunch of jokes that it's not, right? It can be low wage or whatever, and it's hard to, and you're put through a lot of work. But it is just such a good experience. And your first job can be difficult, but it's super fulfilling, and I think you can always make the positive come out of any situation. This industry can be mentally taxing, and I just want to go over that. Like, I think everyone that I've, worked with in Anchorage, especially, we've all kind of gone through it, whether it was with self-confidence or something was happening at home and felt like we couldn't be there. Like, it is difficult, but a lot of people in this industry, have gone through what you're going through. It is difficult, and it is also okay to, be not okay. So if you ever need a talk or anything, like, there's a whole community that knows what you're going through, which is really nice, because you can tell your mom or your dad, like, this today sucked, my story didn't air, or I missed slaughter, and they're just like, I don't know what you're talking about, but everyone else kind of knows how difficult it can be, but it's also rewarding too.
That's definitely reassuring for me, because that's something that I've been kind of nervous about when thinking about my first job when I graduate, which Jesse also mentioned that he said it's reassuring because he's looking into entertainment media news in Texas and wondering how things are when you're in a new place like that.
Really quickly, it is a little bit more difficult with the pandemic, but so I think you have to be brave enough to reach out to your colleagues, because especially if you're working from home, like, reach out to them and say, hey, like, do you mind if I Zoom and ask you a couple questions, or like, can we go on a social distance walk or something like that. And so that, definitely, if folks don't reach out at first, people like, talking and welcoming people. So I think when when it's your first job, like, people want you to succeed. They really do. They don't, when you come there, they don't want you to to fail. They all want you. They're all cheering you on.
So Lily asked, what advice do you give when applying to jobs, especially when most jobs require you to have up to 5 years of experience? And I think that also kind of goes into some questions that I wanted to ask with, what would you suggest to students trying to build up experience, especially when internships are hard to get right now?
Yeah, that is difficult. What I will say is that a lot of the times they look at your reel and they care about your reel. And making a strong reel, I think, could make up for that. I also think that people know that internships are hard to come by, but if you can even mention that in your cover letter or in your bio of your resume, even though it was difficult for you to, it was difficult getting internships, but I made sure that I was active in college, with my television station. And I think that, my reel shows for something like that. And even, push yourself to ask these places, hey, let me write an article on this, let me see if I can get a byline or two in there. I think I can do a good job, give me a chance. And a lot of these places, they like having free, free articles or something like that, as an internship, or just saying, is there any way I can contribute, so I think, yeah, that's a reel's important. What you can do, if you guys could take separate cards and mask up and help each other. But sometimes what I did is I took another MMJ and we went around and filmed stand-ups. Not all of them ended up on my reel. Some of them are pretty terrible, but it helps build up experience. If you do that for like a week or 2 or 3 in a row, oh my gosh, you get so much better. So just doing reps like that is awesome. And then having, someone else film it. So maybe you can do some active stuff, the iPhone microphone's pretty good. I think people will also understand when something's filmed on an iPhone. So take your friend who has the best iPhone, and film it on theirs, and then try to, and just obviously don't spew out things that are untrue. But I think especially, in college reels, like, folks do that, they go to a breaking news scene, like possibly with a TV photographer they're interning with, and they ask them, hey, can I film a stand-up really fast for my reel? Like, that's something that everyone that I've talked to has done. So I think getting reps like that with a friend, take different cars, meet up at the same spot, and get your reps in if you can, and try to do a little bit of research and try to do active stand-ups, and just watch reels too. Watching reels, you get a lot of good, you figure out what you like, you figure out what looks good, and then you just go for it. You can totally do it on an iPhone. And you also don't need a fancy mic if it's not super windy too. It picks you up pretty well. So that's a good way to get around, if you just have a really good reel, then, who cares if you intern at ABC7? I mean, it's a great internship. You guys, it's cool if you intern at ABC7. Awesome. Good job. But you can totally get by without something like that.
I currently intern at ABC7, but it's not as cool. It's not as cool right now during the pandemic.
I'm sure.
Just letting you know.
Yeah.
But
I was going to kind of touch on what you would think would be the best things to put in your reel to kind of stand out more. And I think you kind of mentioned that a little bit with more active stand-ups.
Yeah, I'd say active stand-ups. I mean, that, they always say that's kind of the first thing that kind of reels people in. Reels people in. Okay, and then just, I mean, the fact that my stories were a little bit, I mean, we're more visual than the regular college folks. Oh my God, did I use that joke before? Work on your stand-ups. Okay. I was wondering, did I use that joke before? Yeah, I would say, I mean, people have different philosophies on reels. Active stand-ups are good. I'd say for the first stand-up, this is something that I've gotten a lot of, is like, look your best in your first. That's important. So one day in Phoenix, I just slathered on the most makeup I've ever put on my face, and did my hair and put eyelashes on, and lit myself really pretty, and I had a great opening stand-up where I looked awesome, and it was just all downhill from there. But hopefully, it gave a good first impression. And so that's something that's important. And I'm just going to touch on that. I actually, one of the stations that I interviewed at, like a little bit before I graduated, or like even more than a semester, since I had some time before I was going to commit to anything, I asked the news director, I was like, is there anything I could do to just improve my work? And she was just like, yeah, you could just work on your what you look like. And by that, she meant I just looked like a college kid. My hair was super long. And you don't have to chop off your hair, but for me, it made a big difference. It made me look a lot older. And I mean, I don't think you have to, but I think it's something that at least helped me. And I did look super young, and she was totally right. And then I was so lucky. I had someone in this station I was interning at just take me aside and be like, Sammy, I'm going to teach you how to do your makeup and hair. You're going to come over and we're going to fix this. And I was surprised by how much makeup you had to put on. And I can teach you, if any of you guys are like interested in like makeup and want to do a makeup Zoom class with me, I'll do it. Yeah, you have to put on a lot of makeup, a lot of lipstick, and it's important to just look the part, especially in college. You have to make your, that is something that I just totally put on the back burner. But it is important, and you don't have to be a freaking supermodel or anything like that. You just have to look like, you have to look like you knew you were going to be on TV that day. And that was something I was really bad at. I don't like makeup. My hair, I didn't brush it. I don't know why I didn't brush it, but I didn't. And so, yeah, I'll show you the difference between my 2018 reel and my 2019 reel when I learned how to do makeup. And it does help a lot to just think about those things. You don't have to, change anything drastic, but it just knowing about that presence, and that plays a part of it. It also helps you feel more confident. It totally does. I feel like I can take on the world when I'm wearing lipstick and false lashes. So
question.
That just, yeah. What's up?
So in regards to what you were saying about you have to look the part, I have a question. So dyeing your hair, so like in your
Mhm.
reel, do you have to be consistent with your look, or can you like change the like dye your hair? For example, like I'm brunette,
Yeah.
what if I go blonde? And can
Gotcha.
I add that in my reel, or is that just a big NO? Or it depends on
So,
the patient? Or
yeah, so I think I mean, especially I've seen plenty of reels where the look is, inconsistent. Like I mean, I have a couple stand-ups in mind where my hair is dyed and longer, and then my hair's really short. And I think that's typical. I think if it's a good stand-up, leave it in. The first one or two, and if you have a slate, there probably should be a headshot at the beginning that says, Sammy, Solina, MMJ. You have a headshot. Make sure that's consistent with your current look. But if you throw some in there, I think it's fine. I have had professors tell me that they would prefer a consistent look. And that was really important to them, that I take out those stand-ups that weren't consistent. But I think it's up to the news director. You guys can get other opinions about that, but I've definitely had some inconsistencies in final college reels, and I think that's okay as long as you make sure your headshot and your first stand-up was good.
Something I kind of wanted to ask was if you can kind of describe what your day-to-day life looks like.
Yeah, so usually there's morning meetings. So you do pitch in those morning meetings, which can be kind of scary at first. You pitch, one or two ideas that you have. And it can be difficult to mine for story ideas. That's like one of the hardest things when you move to a new place, is you have to have a story idea every single day. And then you have to turn to that story idea probably. So I put out a lot of cold calls. And just a lot of I like feature stories, so I reach out to a lot of nonprofits and say, hey, like, what are you guys up to? What are you guys doing? Is there community members that you can talk to? That you guys work with. I'll even I talk almost everyone I know. I end an interview with. I go, by the way, I really love human interest stories, and if you know a community member that is really interesting, going out of their way to to make an impact in their community, like let's go for it. So that's one way I come up with story ideas. And then you have your morning meeting, the producers will kind of talk about, if they like your idea or not, or if they want to sign you to something else. I'm an MMJ, so I shoot everything. A lot of the times it's Zoom interviews now, but I like to go out and shoot. At least at my station, if you're going out to shoot, they like you to have as lives, which are stand-ups. And that can be hard to do as an MMJ, but you get used to it. If you're anything like me, you hate like watching people watch you shoot your stand-ups, and you'll never get over it. That's sorry about to break that to you. But yeah, you do stand-ups, you do teases, and then you come back, and I usually have 2 VOSOTs in a package. So one of them will be like an anchor VOSOT. The other one will be could be an as live VOSOT, which is kind of like a mini package, and then you have your package. And I mean, that sounds really scary, but you get used to it. You do, and you'll get faster, and that happens really quickly. So if that sounds intimidating to you and you're about to graduate, you will get the hang of it really, really fast. And one thing that one of my mentors told me that I think is really true is that when new folks come to her station, all she cares about is if they make deadline and it's accurate. And I think that's important to just concentrate on, just make deadline, make sure it's accurate, and you did a good job. It's your first 6 months of work. No one's expecting you to be this, firework right out of the door. Just concentrate on that. Give yourself, an hour deadline before your actual deadline, so that way you can clean things up, or 30 minutes. And that's what I try to do too, because when I got here, that workload is something I wasn't used to. And so that was my goal, was to make sure it's accurate. And now that I've gotten more comfortable with that, I can start to spend a little bit more time at my shoots and not rush back, and spend a little bit more time framing and putting up a double camera, because I've gotten into the swing of things. And that's really important, to make sure that you can do that. So by 10 a.m. by 10 a.m. or 10:30, you know what your story is. The first show is at 4. There's another show at 5. There's another show at 6. And sometimes you're fronting in the studio. Sometimes you have recorded an as live. And I always make sure my face is on before I walk in the door too. So your day starts earlier than that. And you're probably also researching a story idea in the morning too, and making calls. So it can be a long day for sure. But eventually you start building contacts and community members that go to you, and then you don't have to necessarily spend an hour in the morning researching a story idea. So that's important to make contacts.
So Lily asked, how do you come up with the story ideas? But I feel like you kind of answered that.
Yeah, I mean, cold calls are great. Have you guys heard of TweetDeck? TweetDeck is this cool app where you can follow a bunch of people and make like a Twitter list. So the school district tweets a lot, the Department of Health tweets a lot, that your competitors tweet a lot, and then you can have this nice list out. And I think just reading a lot and just asking questions about, okay, so they covered this, like what about this? Just have an inquisitive mind, I guess. And that's an important thing to think about, is just, constantly, read and keep up. I often look at, stations that I really like and look at their website, because sometimes they localize national stories in a really cool way. And I'll just kind of take their ideas and be like, I can do that here. And that's a lot of that kind of stuff goes on. So looking at stations that you really like and you really enjoy watching, I like go to Kara Levin's website like a couple times a week to see what they're up to, and you get some really good ideas by looking at other folks that could be in a completely different part of the country.
Jesse said localizing is super important. So I think you kind of talked about this earlier. Oh, Kyle said, my 2 cents about story ideas. Remember that coming up with story ideas as a student working 15 hours a week on college is way different than someone working 40 hours a week in their job. It gets much easier.
Yeah. It depends. It really just depends on your workload and, what you're comfortable and happy with. I work a lot. And I think I work more than I need to. In Anchorage, it was a gift and a curse. I was the morning reporter, but they only had me come in like one or 2 times a week to do lives. And so my work was for the next day, which means I had a full 24 hours to work on a story if I wanted to. And sometimes I did, but I got really, really good stories doing it. And if you like the industry, and you're mentally okay and physically okay with working hard does do good things for you. And I think that's part of the reason why I've, been able to work at really cool stations and do, good work that I'm proud of, is because I worked my butt off. And that's not an exaggeration. I would stay up all night for stories. So to turn them the next day, I would, shoot things sometimes on my day off. And I think doing that can be worth it. You don't have to do that. You could totally be successful, doing that. And some folks, which is really frustrating, they do good work and they don't have to do that stuff. And eventually one day in your career, you'll get to that point. But a lot of the times I think it's fun to, really put a lot of work and effort into your story, and it almost always, it always usually pays off. So it kind of depends. When you're going to a new job, you tend to do a lot of research, on your own time, and coming up with story ideas can be difficult. But it's also, it's really rewarding. You get to know a lot of community members, but yeah, it can be a lot of work. I think Jonathan Gonzalez said like you have to love it, and that is true. I think if you don't really like it, then there's easier jobs, probably, but if you really do like it, then it's a lot of fun. So it's a balancing act, and that's something you have to, you know, check in with yourself too, because it's okay to like chill out once in a while too, and that's something I've had to figure out. You know, you don't have to you know, push yourself like crazy all the time, you know, and you have to kind of do that balance, but I think hard work does definitely pay off.
So we did get a few questions in the chat. Jesse asked, do you see yourself moving again if the opportunity arises? Do you have limits on uprooting yourself?
So I just kind of want to find a local station that I'm happy with, that lets me do good stories, that I'm, you know, has good management. I don't know if I ever, you know, see myself like, you know, some folks want to, you know, go to Washington, D.C. and do all that stuff. But really, I think if I find a station that I'm happy with, that lets me do feature stories, I think I'm happy with, I think I've won. So I think that's what's most important to me, which is awesome. And then I don't know if I mean, I tell my mom, and she's so sad about this, but I don't know if I necessarily see myself going to, you know, Los Angeles, because I don't see a lot of really good feature storytelling, you know, on their newscasts a whole lot. It's definitely done, but it doesn't seem like that I would be thriving in that environment. And so I probably will never, you know, move back home. I hope my mom moves to wherever I go, and my dad. So yeah, I mean, that's something that you have to just think about. It is hard, you know. You worry about like how do people have kids in this industry? They do. They get by. They have awesome lives outside of news. But that balancing act is going to be kind of hard at first. But it can definitely be done.
So
I have a question actually for you, Sammy. Would you ever consider like working for like National Geographic or like the History Channel? Because I know that they do a lot of like feature documentaries.
Yeah, I mean, that would be really cool. I mean, I know it's so different, and that's what I'm like worried about is I have, you know, my storytelling style is like 3 minutes long, and that's what I'm used to. But there are some stations, like, you know, and I mean, they do it here in Hawaii, they do it in Alaska, where they do 30-minute documentaries. That's something that, you know, if you guys are interested in that, there are a lot of stations that would love to have someone that specializes in that sort of thing. So you can do that in local news. I haven't looked too much into, you know, National Geographic or anything like that, but that would be cool. That sounds sweet. Yeah, I mean, local news is really special though, because you get to connect with communities, and that's something you have to, you know, look at too, is, you know, is this a community I can live at? You know, if you, you know, end up, I mean, you can do anything for 2 years, you totally can. So if you end up in a place that you don't necessarily thought that you would ever end up, you know, just run with it, because, you know, there's you know, special people everywhere you go that you can connect with, and awesome opportunities everywhere. You just have to find that.
Bea asked, what was your best story idea so far? And I think that kind of goes with what Gina asked, which is what types of stories do you cover when living and working on a small island?
The best story idea. This is a recent one. I don't know if it's the best one I've ever done, but it was election day, and I really wanted to. Every time there's like a special event, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, I try to think about, okay, how can I do this differently? I don't want to just go to the polling places and do a story. So I decided to talk to I reached out to the local Republicans, and I reached out to the local Democrats, and I was like, can you find me a family to profile? And so I profiled 2 different families, you know, on either sides. And what was really interesting was they both obviously believed in different paths to get there, but they just kind of wanted to see a better future for their kids, which was pretty crazy. Like, they both wanted the same thing, but a lot of the times you don't think about it that way. And so I was able to do a pretty cool story, just thinking about how to do things differently. And a lot of my story ideas come from, okay, so this is what I'm given. This is what the day is about. How can I make this interesting? We've all seen, what election day coverage looks like. How can I make it different? And so that's what I try to think about a lot. So that's probably one of my recent ones that I've been proud of, is I was able to kind of do a human interest piece on, election day, when they sent me to the polls anyways, but on my own time I kind of woke up early and profiled those families and turned something in for the evening. So yeah, you can do that too.
I just want to make sure that your email is spelled correctly. Your last name is Gievers, right?
So I actually took my mom's name when I graduated, and I'll do Samantha Gievers at Gmail. So yeah, that's my personal email address. So you can find that there. Professionally, I go by Solina, which is my mom's name, but that's my personal email address if you guys want to reach out.
Sorry about that. Sorry.
I did.
No worries.
I did want to ask if you could show us one of your reels, one of your college reels,
Yeah.
one of your professional reels before we let you go.
Yeah. So, okay, let's see how to do this. How do I? Oh, share screen. Okay, desktop 1. Okay, so share. Are you seeing it? Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, we see your screen.
Oh, okay, sweet. So how do I get at this thing now? I've never shared my screen before. As you can probably tell. I think this is my first reel I put together, which is spring of 2018. I won't play the stories, but you can kind of see a little bit of my growth. Okay. Hang on. I'm sorry. How do I make this bigger?
I think if you click on the video link right there underneath it.
Oh, does this work? Is it big?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, it's full screen now.
Okay, cool.
Oh, we can't hear it.
Is it because I'm wearing my AirPods?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
It
yes.
could-
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
Zoom is
Turn on the setting. There's a thing on the bottom that should say share the audio from the computer. It's in if you click on the green bar across the. I've been in this position before, and so I sympathize.
More.
Thanks, Kyle.
More. Show. Okay, hang on. Sorry, I'm just gonna put my AirPods away.
No problem. We're all there.
No
with you.
way. Okay.
There should be there should be an option that says share your.
One bag at a time comes to downtown
Is it
Phoenix
okay?
about once a month, and they'll serve between 300 and 500 individuals. Keeping valuables out of sight can cause a burglar to move on to the next car. Even clutter can cause a thief to remain curious about what lies underneath. Over 2 million people every year spend time at Tempe Town Lake, but this is more than just a recreational spot. We're about to go into our first maze. We're expecting to see a lot of horror and also a lot of fright. We will be talking to a lot of the Republicans, and it seems like a lot of these races could be pretty close, so you'll definitely hear from us later in the night. Sky Harbor faculty encourages drone owners to look over the rules before flying. They cannot operate within 5 miles of the airport without notifying the control tower. Accomplishing a goal like climbing Mount Kilimanjaro is no easy task, which is why Amy trains more than 15 hours a week in preparation. The 21st State Senate District has put Santa Clarita Valley Republican Scott Wilk against Antelope Valley Democrat Jonathan Irvin. The balloon community is very tight-knit. Many of them are from Albuquerque today. They took a 7-hour drive this morning just to be here in Phoenix.
So that was my 2018 reel. So I mean, it's not bad. It's not bad. You'll notice my hair. I look like a mermaid, which was super cool. But I kind of showed this off, and folks kind of said you look really young in that. So I kind of, tried a little bit harder to just make myself look a little bit more presentable, do more active things. I'm the most awkward person when I hold a microphone like this, and I try my hardest not to do that because I just look awkward, I think. So I made some adjustments and really worked hard at trying to develop an on-air presence. So this was, I think, like a year or so later. So this is, and I guess I'll play one story. Do you guys have like 5 minutes?
Yeah, we can walk the story.
I'll play the first story too, so you can kind of see the visual stuff that people saw.
In the general population, about 8% of youth are in the LGBT community, but in the youth homeless population, that number is at about 40%. This Welcome to Coral Canyon sign resembles the landscape right next to it. Burnt and unrecognizable, and volunteers will sort through a warehouse full of toys just to find the perfect one. This is the first day the Ryans have been back. Their house is okay, but their shed is a different story. Inside were yearbooks, wedding photos, but compared to what happened next door, that's a lot worse. Noah says the best way to help these guys is to keep a distance of at least 10 feet when you see them on the beach. So Michelle rescues dogs like Rosalie, who would be a little bit harder to adopt out. Even though there are less people here than there were in the Phoenix March in 2018, the message still holds strong. Equality for all women. At least 17 homes in this Malibu community ended up like this one, but there could have been more if it weren't for the efforts of neighbors nearby. Survivors are also here, and they're telling us they're visiting to get some closure. Even though a year has passed, survivors still feel the impact of October 1st. A local student shared her experience with me from that night and how those events are still with her and her family.
So I'll talk about that really fast. So you can kind of see the difference in focusing on your stand-ups and working on your stand-ups and trying new things. So that was something that I worked really hard at because I wanted to get better at. And thank you, I appreciate it. And I mean, when you concentrate on something, you can get a lot better at it. And it didn't take that long to go from one point to another point. And I think, if, for graduating seniors who are just like, what am I going to do? If you really concentrate on, thinking about these stand-ups, going out in the community and doing them with I did it with every story, even just trying to think of some way to make a stand-up. Even if I knew the stand-up wasn't going to be on my reel, I did a stand-up anyways, and I committed to it. And then eventually, you get some good ones. And so, yeah, that's something that I would do. And I had a mix of, you saw that my hair was different in some of them. I had really short hair, and then I had like some long, I don't know what was going on with the color of my hair, but it was quirky and fun, right? And so I had a little bit of differences. You could tell that in some, some stand-ups I was, dressed more casually than others, and overall I think, if you work hard at something, then you get something, you can improve a lot. Is it any questions about the first part of it? No? Okay.
Would we be able to send you our stand-ups to get like feedback?
Yeah, totally, definitely. And it is hard because, people have different opinions. Like even professors that have been in the industry like 20 years, different ones will tell me to put ones, in front of the other one. And it's, so I could definitely tell you what I think. I don't know if it would, necessarily line up with other people's views. Like some, one professor really, told me to, do ones where I dress nicely and others, at the front, whereas others were like, yeah, put the fire ones in first, no makeup sweating, get those out there because those are the coolest. So so I just ended up like doing a mix of that. So yeah, totally. I can yeah, email me. You have my email. Use the one that I sent. Yeah. Oh, you guys are so nice. I'm looking at all the comments. Do you guys want to see a college story?
I think we have time for that.
Okay.
I would like
Okay.
to see one.
This was
I did have a question, not regarding the reels, but your website. I was looking at it. It was linked in the chat. Which do you use
old-
Wix or what is this? It's like
website.
really
It's Weebly.
cool.
It's
Okay.
Weebly, and I should be updating it. But I haven't in a long time. But Weebly is really easy to use and free. And I think it's a pretty good looking website for a college kid. So Weebly is really easy to use, and you just throw a couple pictures up. You have your coolest stories. You link to your social media. It'll take you like an hour or two to build. It's not bad. It's not a bad idea to have. I would definitely make one if you can.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. I guess I'll do the first one. So this was not a day turn. This took a long time to make, and Cronkite was. I was fortunate. Cronkite chose me to send to the year anniversary of the Vegas shooting. And all you guys are comfortable watching a story on this? This is the year anniversary. If you're not, let me know. But you seem like you're all cool, so I'll go ahead and play it. And I shot and wrote this guy. Can you see it? Am I sharing my screen?
No, we can't.
No,
we
we
can't,
can't see it.
No.
Okay. I thought I was good at this stuff, but I'm share. You see it now?
Yes.
All right.
Family. Survivors are back in Las Vegas a year later.
Let the light in your spirit continue to shine. Don't let it go out.
And even though one ASU student couldn't be there for the sunrise remembrance,
Let that light lead you in your life.
she remembers that night every day.
I'm almost angry that it's been a year. I can't believe that. That's what's the Mandalay Day right there.
Shea Diaz is a survivor of the Route 91 Harvest Music Festival. She decided to stay home in Phoenix during the year anniversary ceremonies.
To measure the mechanical advantage, there's your resisting, your effort, and your fulcrum. And your fulcrum's like the joint.
Right now, she's studying for midterms at ASU, but her thoughts are never very far from that night 1 year ago. She thought she'd be bringing back memories like this one, captured in a video at the concert before it was a killing ground.
Finally, I realized, this is happening. You gotta do something.
Diaz was in a group of about 30 friends and family members. They were separated when the shots rang out.
That was the most heartbreaking thing, to not see them afterwards.
Her little sister was in the Mandalay Bay. You can hear the shooting start in her Snapchat.
Then this is awkward.
And as hard as that day was for Diaz, for her dad, it may have been even harder.
She's probably seen more in her lifetime than most people will ever see.
We met her family later in Las Vegas outside of the Mandalay Bay.
The stage was right here.
It was important for them to return.
Looking at this building behind me, it's just a building. It's just a building that some guy chose to use as a tool to exploit whatever was going on in his mind.
His entire group survived that night.
Lisa Romero Muniz.
But for the 58 who didn't.
Angela Gomez, 20.
Austin Davis, 29.
Carly
Riverside,
Krebaum,
California.
33.
Sandy Casey,
Sonora, Iowa.
38.
Jessica
Candace
Metzler,
Flowers,
Andrea
7.
Romero Ramirez, 28.
Their legacy will continue to ring on.
Shea Diaz's family said that the main reason they came out is to support other families who lost someone.
Hey, Betty. So that was the story that I chose to put at the beginning. Partly because it was, a hard news story, but it also was a human interest story. I just, if you have time, which with college stories you get to do a lot. I played around with my writing and figuring out what to do, and the collage at the end was something that I kind of just thought about maybe trying. And it ended up working out. And it's a lot of trial and error. And if you have the time to spend on that sort of thing, that's important. And thinking about story structure too. What do I put first? How do I make the viewer relate to this character or to this person? And figuring things like that out. So, if you guys are working on a story and have materials or scripts, I've looked at student scripts before and materials and that sort of thing. And if you guys need help structuring a story, that's something, I always think is really interesting and fun to talk about. So if you guys ever need help with that, let me know.
Thank you so much, Sammy. We really appreciate you coming out here today. Well, not even coming out, hopping on Zoom today.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. And seriously, I really, so many folks have helped me out in this industry, and I really couldn't have done it without them. So if any of you guys have questions or just want to talk about something, you guys are so nice. Oh my gosh. This is no, I had a lot of fun. So if you guys have questions or just want me to look at something or want to just talk about the industry or stories, I love to do that sort of thing. I'm a total nerd, and I could give a 12-hour long presentation. You guys want that? No? Okay.
Well, I'm definitely going to be reaching out to you, and I know definitely some of our members are going to be reaching out to you too as well. So remember the CSUN RTDNA.
Yes, of course. Thanks, guys. And it's also, it's also never too early. I forgot to mention this. It's never too early to reach out to a news director. Once you have a story or two that you're proud of and want to just touch base and say, I'd love your opinion on how to get better. This is a station I'm interested in. This is where I'm at right now. I would love to know from you how I can get better. That's an awesome, I've done that a couple times. And it's never too early to do that. So just something to think about for the freshmen, sophomore, juniors, or seniors, whatever stage you're at, it's never too early to do that. So.
Great.
Thank you so much for talking with us. I think everyone really enjoyed this meeting.
Hey, I'm glad. Yeah, of course. Let me know if you guys ever need help or anything.
I'm definitely going to reach out to you for help.
Yeah. So sure. Yes, I will too.
Yeah, no, it'll be fun. If I was there, it would be fun to, and this wasn't coronavirus, it'd be fun to do some stand-ups and that sort of thing with you guys.
Oh yeah, good call.
Yeah, that would be fun.
But
thank you so much, Sammy.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Awesome. Well, for all of our members, thank you guys so much for hopping on. You are welcome to hop off. We do have a awesome guest speaker next week, actually. He is a anchor at NBC in Los Angeles. His name is Jonathan Gonzalez. I would highly suggest to check him out before so you can get some ideas for questions or anything. He is super, super fun, just like Sammy, really funny. He talks super fast, so make sure that you're a little bit paying attention, just letting you know. But
a great feature story person. Like I mentioned him earlier, you guys should really watch his feature stories. He's really, really great.
Yeah, he's one of Sammy's top people that she follows. So that says a lot because he's really, really good. So I would highly suggest Jonathan Gonzalez, NBC LA. He was in Bakersfield before, and I don't remember what his first station was, but he is really cool, really good journalist. He anchors at NBC in LA on the weekends, and he was doing weekday for a while, but because of COVID. So he's really cool. Check him out. Check out his stories and come up with awesome questions. But you guys can hop off. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Sophia and Savannah, before you go, do you want to?
Yes.
Or...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Before you guys hop off, I know Lily, our social media coordinator, had to hop off really quick, but Kyle, thank you so much for hopping on today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Guys, I wanted to introduce you to our new CSUN RTDNA advisor. I'm super excited about this. He actually, fun fact, Kyle was the president of his RTDNA chapter at his college before. So, ironically,